again. My name is Alex, and it's very, very good to be here, not least of which because I really didn't make it yesterday. Yes, my name is Alex Trowers. I am a game designer, although I've started calling myself a game developer these days. You can follow me on Twitter, at @botpaint, if you're interested in anything game design or indie games or anecdotes or now babies as well. That's become a bit of a topic as well. This talk is called How is Greater Than Y and What? It's a talk I've done before, many, many years ago, and it's kind of born out of a sort of a frustration with people who call themselves game designers or game designers or game developers. How many of you here are game designers? That's a lot. How many of you got who are coders? And artists? And, you know, I'll throw in sound guys. So, yeah, as Marcus was saying, I've been around a bit. Just to give you a bit of background on me, I started working for a company called Bullfrog back in the day. There we made everything from, worked on Powermonger through Populous 2, Magic Carpet, Syndicate, Theme Park, Theme Hospital, all of those ones. Then I moved around an awful lot, you know, worked for EA again, had my own company, worked for a company called Lost Toys, started Kuju, and the last place I was at was a company called Boss Alien. I don't know if anyone's heard of them. Has anyone heard of CSR Racing? Oh, no? No? Interesting. Okay. So CSR Racing was a monstrous success on mobile, a little drag racing game that essentially prompted the studio to get bought out by first Natural Motion, then by Zynga. So it must have done something right. But yes, how is greater than Y and what? What do I mean by that? Well, when people find out what it is that I do, I make games for them, they always go, oh yeah, right, hang on, I've got a great idea for a game. And they then tell me a great idea for a story for a first-person shooter, or a story for a third-person action adventure, or the setting of it, or the characters. Nobody tells me what it is that they actually do, like what these characters are supposed to do, what it means to have that setting. It's almost as if they haven't thought of it, but they've got this fantastic backstory, although it's always a space marine or a zombie's involved somewhere. Do you know what I mean? So I find that very, very frustrating. I find that very frustrating for a number of reasons, not least of which is, suppose you, as that designer, do find yourself on a team where you've got your coders, you've got your artists, you've got a sound guy, and they say, well, what are we building? And you start saying, right, well, his name is Jeff. He's got this big gun, and he is out there to save the princess from the evil zombie hordes. And you know, this is why the zombies have arrived, and this is the planet that they're on. And that doesn't help the team at all. They're just like, yeah. So what do you want me to type in here? Because so far you're giving me nothing. So I think for a designer, it is a very, very, very important skill to be able to to be able to articulate how something is supposed to work. What are you actually doing minute to minute? When you've got that controller in your hand, or when you're swiping the screen, or when you're clicking the maps, what is it that you're actually trying to do? And is that any fun? To that end, I am going to hopefully come up with, or tell you a bunch of tips and tricks I've learned over my time, things to watch out for, and common pitfalls. Now, for the last, it was about just over a year ago, I lost my job at Boss Alien. And now, so I am a fully fledged de facto indie developer. I'm doing it on my own. Well, I'm not doing it on my own. I'm doing it with my missus and our little baby daughter, whose only real contribution is really sort of smell and noise. But okay, you know, every place needs that. So one of the reasons why it didn't work out for me and Boss Alien is I used to get very sort of frustrated with, not the people there are amazing, really super talented, but they used to get very frustrated with me because every now and again they would suggest, hey, why doesn't the game do this? And I could think of many reasons why we shouldn't do that. And I would normally say, well, you know, we do that means this won't work, and that won't work, and the other won't work. And the only reason I was saying that is because my experience has led me to I've already tried that somewhere else, and it didn't work, and these is because of why. But understandably, in a very creative environment like that, that's a very bad thing, because it always felt to them like I was being super negative, or I was always shooting them down. So, by way of an experiment, what I would like to do is perform the rest of this talk without being negative. This may go horribly, horribly wrong. What we have here is the negativity-ometer. So what I need, actually, is a volunteer from the audience. And I have a volunteer from the audience. Could you come down, sir? What's your name?
Jared.
Jeremy?
Jared.
Jared. Can we have a big hand for Jared, please? Now, your job is very, very simple. Whenever you think I'm saying something negative, press the space bar.
Okay.
Yeah? And then that number will go up by 1. And then when we get to the end of the talk, we'll see how negative I've been. Now, I've never tried this before. I've no idea how big that number's going to go. All I know is that if it gets into triple figures, this is probably going to crash because there is no third digit. Okay? So from this point on, whenever you hear me say something that you think is negative, you press the button. So this is not me checking my phone. This is me looking at some notes I wrote earlier. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw at you a bunch of, well, some of them are very glib sayings, some of them are little sort of mantras that I use, and hopefully some interesting tricks and techniques about how I think, this is just my opinion, that people would be better served going about game development. Now I always start with this one. My number 1 rule of gameplay in everything is that you can kill the player in any way you want. It doesn't matter. You can kill them however you want, or cause them to fail, or cause them to lose. Anyway, as long as, and this is crucial, they realise it was their fault. Yeah? As long as they realise it was their fault, they accept it and move on. Now, their fault can be in anything. It can be anything from they weren't quick enough to it told me it was going to blow that bit up. Why was I still standing on that bit? I should have moved. To I just need to be better at this. I know the system. I know how it works. I know what it is I'm supposed to do. I just don't have the skills to do it yet. I need to get better. And all of those are fine. But it is amazing how many games don't do that. If you're ever playing a game and you think, that was unfair, then I think that has broken this rule. But like I said, I mean, you can apply that to almost anything. The other thing I feel is quite important, and this is kind of going to go to sort of 2 subjects here, is the concept of ownership and authorship. By that, I mean what you as the player do has some meaning. It has some meaning in the game. You can be playing a game and someone else can be playing a game, and the way they approach it is different to the way you approach it. That's ownership. He owns his game. It's the same game as yours, but the stuff that he's done is different. And that promotes great, what we used to call the water cooler moments, where you'd be standing around the water cooler saying, oh, are you playing so-and-so? Oh, yeah. Hey, did you get to the bit with the so-and-so, with the thing and the... No, I didn't get that bit. I went over here and I did that. Well, I didn't realise you could do that. And those moments are fantastic when you get that sort of, that back and forth between players who are essentially playing the same thing, but they're playing it in their own way. Classic examples of this would be something like Mass Effect is probably one of the best examples of this. And one of the worst. It's crazy because for something that is so content heavy, to have so many different outcomes and bits of nuance and everything is absolutely phenomenal. What a feat they did to actually make that. Also, probably one of the biggest exceptions to this how is greater than why and what, because in Mass Effect it was all about the story, wasn't it? And in fact, if you played the first game, the actual mechanics of moving around and shooting and using all your powers was a little bit clunky. It got better in the second game. But it didn't matter because it was all about how can we do it. What? Yeah. Hey, it's a critique. I still absolutely love the Mass Effect, I would say, series. Certainly the first couple, I thought they were brilliant. So that's kind of what I mean by authorship. The feeling that you as a player, there's something you can do to affect the outcome. So I don't mean things like Farmville. There's nothing you can really do in Farmville to affect the outcome. All you're doing is clicking on the button to get the next thing. and the next thing that you get is the same next thing that everybody gets. There's no, this is my farm, this is I know at this point that if I do start veering into what I think about free-to-play, this is going to crash. But actually, this is interesting, because this brings me to another, I think, very important point, and that is games, the word games. What does it mean? What does it mean? And it means different things to all sorts of people. I can't stand here and say that Farmville is not a game. Well, I can, but he's going to press the button again. What I think the issue is, notice issue, not problem. What I think the issue is that we don't have enough words. There aren't enough words to describe these things. Yeah? I think because the games industry and the games that are available to play has become so broad now, we need more words to adequately describe it. Because what I think makes a game, makes a lot of stuff that is available for you to buy and play not qualify for it. I think several key components of a game. Again, this interaction, this authorship, the fact that mine is different to yours. And crucially, for me, a game has to have something where you can get good at it. You can learn a skill, you can master this game. You can't master Farmville, you can't master. Can you master Clash of Clans? Is that something that you can do? I mean, I've got a village. I have positioned stuff. I don't really know yet. I'm still very, very early on in my Clash of Clans days. But at the moment, it feels like, is what I'm doing actually making a difference? And will I get better at it? Or will the skill and the score of my village be purely dictated by how long I've played for or how much money I've spent? Is there anything I can do to change that? So I think there needs to be a word to describe that. Now, very importantly, I'm not saying that any of these are worse than a game. In my personal preference, I like the interaction. I like the minute-to-minute gameplay. But, for instance, something like Journey. Has anyone played Journey? That is a fantastic, I don't know what the word is, game. Yeah? It's not a very good game. The jumping's a bit loose. It's, you know, there are better platformy things. But, yeah. But as an experience, it is absolutely phenomenal, and I love that game to pieces. Talking earlier about the great sound design or great music design in games, Journey surely has to rank right up there with some fantastic moments. And it's another interesting game that plays on an emotional hook rather than a mechanical one. I would also count things like, for instance, Ico. Everyone played Ico? Yeah? That, again, whilst you can get frustrated with some of the actual gameplay, why does she keep falling down that hole? Why can't I make that jump? This is hampering my progress. What keeps you playing is the emotional, I've got to get her out of here, I must get her out of here. And then the ending was just absolutely phenomenal, which obviously I'm not going to spoil for the people who haven't played it. But it's available on, they've done an HD one now, haven't they? So there's no reason why people haven't played it. So this is where I think a lot of the issues that I have with the current state of game development is, and that is just purely a lack of semantics as to how we go around describing things. How is that negative? Wasn't it? I'll give you another example. So there's a chap who works for Dina, and we were having a discussion, or there was a whole bunch of us having a discussion on how do we make free-to-play better. And I was saying, well, what you want to do is you want to concentrate on giving the player interesting things to do, get a good core game in there. So for instance, something like Puzzle and Dragons, the actual act of dragging the little gems around and matching them up and firing the spells, that's a good fun game. They've got a nice solid thing there, which is why I think that's actually a good thing. His definition of making free-to-play better is, well, how much more money can we get out of people? All he cares about is driving up the numbers and starts throwing around things like ARPUs and DAOs and MAOs and monetization percentages. That's his definition of better. So as you can see, we're already at this impasse where we're describing exactly the same thing that we think in our heads, but from two totally different perspectives. And I think that is something we need to look at before describing games as a whole. Because what describes a decent mobile experience doesn't necessarily describe a decent console experience or a decent PC experience. Personally, I find myself in the mobile space at the moment. And as far as I'm concerned, at this moment in time, I don't know, 99% of mobile game players are entitled, whining, cheap ass, and they can all go die in a fire. Can anyone see why I said that? Does anyone know why I said that, other than give this guy something to do? Yeah, the fact that balking at $3 for a game, because suddenly that's too expensive. You can't get a coffee for that, you know, and the game will give you hours of entertainment. In theory, I'm not saying all of these games need to be judged by that same criteria, but you can't. The people's perception of value is incredibly skewed. Although there's a great saying, which is what value is only ever what somebody is prepared to pay for something, which makes 99% of all mobile games completely valueless if no one's paying for them. But this is a rant for another day with much more alcohol and without someone. So what's it like being an indie as opposed to, say, being a AAA developer? Actually, I say AAA developer. When I started out, there was no AAA, we were just A. And then over the years, people keep adding new A's. And I imagine, maybe not this generation, but maybe the next generation, you're going to see the first quadruple A title. It doesn't really mean anything. It really doesn't. Or they could be attributed to marketing spend, you know. But what does it mean to be an indie, and how does that compare? It's better in some ways, and it's worse in others. There are advantages to both development models. If you're in a AAA studio, you've got an awesome army of resources at your disposal. You've got super talented people. Actually, okay, that's a given. You've got super talented people whether you're indie, whether you're AAA. But what you've got is a lot more of them if you're AAA. So the potential is there. You can do more things. You can make bigger games. You can make grander games, much more spectacle, higher degrees of polish. Production values coming out the wazoo. And you can market this thing so it sells God knows how many millions. When you're an indie, you don't have that. You trade all of that stuff in for being, I'm going to use the word agile, and I mean it in the proper sense rather than the marketing buzzword sense. You are agile. You can react to stuff quicker. You can develop with more options. You've always got more options open to you. It's a lot faster because you're not having to deal with bureaucracy. You don't have to deal with a producer who has to deal with an exec, who has to deal with marketing, who has to deal with It's just you. And that's wonderful freedom because you're in control, you're in charge. You can do whatever it is that you want. The only downside being that you don't necessarily have the resources to do it. So actually, my number one tip for if you're being an indie refers to ambition. And this may sound negative, but it actually isn't. And that is, don't be too ambitious. It is much better to make a small thing that you polish to a mirror shine, rather than try and do the next Skyrim or the next GTA. It's not something you're going to be able to do because you don't have the resources. And that's not because you're a bad developer, it's just because you're a small developer. So know your strengths, know what it is that you can and can't do. I think that is probably the most crucial thing. And on the one hand, I mean, I love it because there's nobody telling me, hey, don't do that, or we would prefer it if you did this, or anything like that. I get the final say. And believe you me, I love having the final say. So, yeah, the creative freedom is second to none, and you'll never get that in a big studio. You do miss out on the social stuff. You can't underestimate how important the social stuff is, but that's why you have stuff like this, or you have game jams, or you have the indie beers, all of that stuff. That is brilliant. But that's brilliant for a whole bunch of reasons. Like, one of the main reasons for coming and doing this, aside from the fact that I get to talk about two of my most favourite things, games and me, is I get to meet people. I get to meet people and get enthused about games. It's always great coming here and meeting the next wave of designers, the next wave of developers, who are always like, yeah, okay, they may be misguided with the, I've got an idea for a game. No, you haven't. But it's the enthusiasm. So when I first started work at Bullfrog, through a rather tortuous series of events that maybe I'll talk to you about later, the first thing that Peter said to me was, I can teach anyone to program in 2 weeks, which is true. He can. He'll sit you down. He's got a way of doing it that will mean that you can, by the end of 2 weeks, and this was back then when it was all assembler on Amigas and what have you, you can have something up and running, have a rudimentary game going within 2 weeks. Now, he says a lot of things will happen in 2 weeks, but with this one he was absolutely on the money. He can. But he said the one thing I can't teach is enthusiasm. And again, I think that is absolutely crucial. If you are enthusiastic, you will, you'll break down any wall that gets in your way because you've got this enthusiasm, you've got this drive. All of the most successful people in the world have this enthusiasm. It manifests itself in different ways. There are some people who are enthusiastic about making lots of money, and they go off and they make lots of money, and they won't let anything stop them making lots of money. Some people are enthusiastic about horses. They make lots of horses. You see what I mean? You have a passion, you have a drive, there's something you want to do. My passion, my drive is games and gameplay and making things fun. Absolutely the best feeling you can get in this industry, the best feeling that you used to get in this industry when everything was physical box copies, was you'd walk into a shop and there would be your game on the shelf and you'd be like, yeah, look at that, that's a supremely proud moment. And it's fantastic. And what makes it even better is if you see someone go up, take it off the shelf and go to his mate, get this, it's really good. That is just, I love that, absolutely love that. You know how they say, and these days I guess that translates to watching the forums or looking at your reviews on the app thing. And they say you should never read the comments. Well, you should never read the comments. But occasionally you'll get gems in there, and it only takes one or two to really, really put a smile on your face. It's like, oh, that person there, that person gets it, they understand. So this year has been a very interesting year. This year has been a very, very interesting year for us. From a great many reasons. Primarily because my daughter was born, but also because our other baby came to fruition, our first game. So we were developing this game. It's called GlyphQuest, out on Android and iOS. No, that's positive. That's definitely. But we were developing it while Leanne was pregnant, and it was always this kind of race of, well, what's going to come first, the game or the baby? And thankfully, the game beat the baby by about a week. So, if anyone was wondering how hard is it to make a game while you're heavily pregnant, the short answer is very. But again, incredibly worthwhile. So what we did after that was make another game. And if anyone's wondering how hard is it to make a game when you've got a newborn baby, the answer is ridiculously hard, but incredibly worthwhile. It is absolutely fantastic. So yeah, this year has been, well, it's been absolutely crazy. But part and parcel of it, so our new game, which is called Super GlyphQuest, which is basically like GlyphQuest, but super. It's just bigger and better and more polished because, we had a bit longer to work on it, and we knew what we were doing ahead of time. We knew how the game was going to work because we'd already written one version of it, so this the second time around it should be much easier, right? We released that, and it reviews well. Everyone who plays it really, really likes it. The biggest problem we have with, again, being an indie is we don't have a marketing budget, so getting the word out there is really, really tricky, which is why I rely on people like you to actually download it, play it, tell your friends, oh, get this, it's really good. We got a bit of backlash on the forums when we decided to drop the price, but then the forums came to our aid, and we actually have a nice fan base. And this sounds really, really strange, referring to an internet forum as nice. But these people are amazing. They're absolutely amazing, because for any one person that comes on and says, oh, you guys ripped us off, or you did this, or you suck, man, there's 10 guys on our forum who just immediately jump on them and say, no, you don't understand. This is why they did that. This is how this works. This is brilliant. This game is excellent. And I will give them more money if I So that is incredibly heartwarming. And again, I guess as close as we can come to the old paradigm of here's your box on the shelf. And if I could feed the baby on that good feeling, that would be just peachy. So one of the other issues, and again this was brought up in the talk just gone, is one of networking. And like I said, if you want to feed the social aspect of your life, of your working life, and keep a good sort of work-life balance, then events like this are crucial. And it's crucial for you guys as well. It's really, really a unique opportunity for you to meet people, I want to say like me, but not necessarily me, but like the guy who's coming up next, James, he really knows his onions and has got some amazing insights into how games work and why games work. He's really, really good. And nowhere else are you going to get an opportunity to just walk up to him and say, hey James, can I ask you about this? Can I ask you about that? What do you think about this? How should I approach this? Yeah? So events like this are absolutely crucial to form connections with people already in the industry, people who may already know the answers to the questions that you have. Aside from that, they're also really, really good for meeting your peers. You might be sitting there thinking, oh right, I really want to make a game about pumpkins, but I need 3 other guys who are into pumpkins. Where can I find 3 other guys who are into pumpkins? You stand up and you go, who's into pumpkins? And 3 people go, yeah! Right, let's get together, let's make a game. And that can only happen in environments like this, you know, or you know, more correctly, down the pub normally. And it leads on to one of the other best reasons for being in a studio, and that is the wouldn't it be cool if conversation. Simply the best conversations you can have are the ones where somebody goes, hey, wouldn't it be cool if the pumpkin had a jetpack? Yeah, flying pumpkins. Why just jetpacks? Why not wings? I want one that looks like a bat. No, give me an angel pumpkin. And you see what I mean? And you can't do that on your own. You can try, but people will call you crazy. It really, really helps to have other people coming in and throwing their feedback in. And you get this sort of rolling boil, and if you do it right, you get this rolling boil of enthusiasm and passion, and you come out the end of it going, yeah, that's fantastic, and you're so energized, let's go and make this. That's when you need someone to say, well, this is actually what we're going to do. This is how we're going to make that. Because it's very, very good having this wonderful creative, but then you need to be able to funnel it to actually get somewhere. Otherwise, all you're doing is just staying within this one circle, being super, super creative and not actually producing. There's a wonderful video online of John Cleese. Everyone knows John Cleese, right? Yes. Yes, he did this fantastic talk on creativity. I don't know if you've seen it. And his point was, to paraphrase him, because he put a lot of gags in there, which I can't possibly repeat. His basic premise was that there are always 2 stages of any creative process. The first stage is this wonderful melange of brainstorming, passion and ideas, and you're just throwing everything at it, and you need to be completely open. He calls it the open phase. Completely open to suggestions, completely open to ideas, and who knows where you're going to end up. And then when you've taken that and you've decided on the direction, which way you're going to go, then you must be completely close to ideas until you've done it. Otherwise, you're not going to go anywhere. Because it's very, very easy, and I totally empathise with this. It's very easy to get sidetracked, especially if you're in that kind of still buzzing, oh, what about this, what about that, squirrel! And that thing, and this thing, and that thing. It's very, very hard to get anything done because you're always thinking of the next thing. So that's why he advocates this sort of 2-stage process. And it's not like do all of that one stage at the start, then do all of this stage at the end. It's like, do that stage, resolve it. Do that stage, resolve it. Do that stage, resolve it. And you repeat that as many times as you want during the project, and at the end you'll have something really, really cool. That's the theory, anyway. And I think that's really, really, really good. I think too often people focus on one side of it or the other. And you can normally tell if they're like a production background, they'll do this bit. If they're a design background, they'll do this bit. If they're a code background, they'll go, guys, what? Coder? Okay. So that's a lot of stuff about how I think that's how a good way of coming up with ideas for games, a good way of coming up with ideas of how they should work. I don't believe you should ever design a game by committee, by the way. I think you should only ever have one person whose ultimate role is to say, that's a good idea, that's a bad idea, this is what we're doing. Obviously, I prefer it if that person's me. You don't often get that chance. However, that person is a complete tool if he just believes that I'm the only one who's going to have all the good ideas. Yeah, it's not a good idea unless it comes out of my head. No, that's completely wrong. Yeah, there is no way you can come up with all of the best ideas all of the time. So you need those other people around you saying, hey, I'd really like it if this happened, or I'd really like it if that happens, or why is he moving so fast? Why can we not have him do this? What about jumping? What about... You need that other input. We do similar things. I mean, although it's just, we're a team of 2 people, and we do have arguments about how we think certain systems should work, it's very easy for us to try them out and see what happens. And then the real test is when you hand it to someone else who isn't involved with the team, and they play it. In the AAA studios, they refer to this as, say, focus testing, where they will get a bunch of people to come into the game completely blind and play it. The hardest thing there, as a developer, is not going, oh, wow, you're playing it wrong. Okay? The idea is you don't say a damn thing. You let them make mistakes, you let them get stuck, you let them work themselves into crazy situations. And all the while you're noting down what it is that they did and how they did it, so that you can go back and analyse it and go, do we think that's a problem? Half of the people aren't making that first jump. Okay, is the jump too wide? Is the jump too high? Have we not told the people how to jump? Whatever. Find a solution, go back and try it again. But if you sitting there ahead of time going, oh, you do this to jump, or no, leave it a little later, then jump, you're playing the game for them, and you're not going to learn any useful information from that. So that's another interesting skill to develop, and it's really tricky, to try and be almost impassionate while you're watching someone else play the game, and not, no, oh, come on, I'll just give it here, I'll do it for you. Yeah? But you'll get so much more value out of letting them fail. It's really, really useful. So I talked earlier about developing a skill at a game. And again, this is something that I think is really, really, it's underrated in the mobile space, because the people who produce mobile games don't want you necessarily to get a skill, they just want you to get to the next bit that makes you pay money. So how do you do that? How do you make it so that a game has enough depth so that someone can get good at it, but that isn't just immediately off-putting for everyone else who looks at it and goes, that's baffling, I couldn't possibly understand. I think one of the best and worst examples of this is League of Legends. Has anyone played League of Legends? Yeah? When you first started playing in League of Legends, how often did you find yourself staring at the screen going, I don't understand what just happened there, I've not got a clue. It's very confusing, it's very overwhelming, it's very arcane, because there is so much depth there, and it's not very accessible to the beginner, coupled with their incredibly toxic community. Yeah? It means that if you're a beginner, if you're a beginner in League of Legends, you've got to have a skin so thick to be able to progress to the next level, where finally, oh, I understand now why I did it wrong there, and people are shouting at me. I get it now. The examples I always use are stuff like Street Fighter, or maybe Tekken even, or any of those old beat-em-ups. Anyone can pick up the controller and mash buttons, and they will win a percentage of the games, right? But an expert, a pro, who has honed his skills, should be able to beat a button masher almost every time, because they've earned that skill, they know what it is that they're doing. The key word there, though, is almost. Because there will be every so often when the button masher gets that one lucky hit in, and then, especially like someone like Bayek or the guy with the nunchucks, just combo the other guy to death, and you'll be like, oh, that was so unfair. The thing is, they happen rare enough so that the player who's got the skill is still confident that he is better and winning and doing well. But they happen often enough so that the player who's normally getting his arse kicked but still enjoying the button mashing has that glimmer of, yes, that was a victory for me, I'm going to carry on playing. Okay? And getting that balance is crucial. But it can be summed up in that whole sort of system, that whole methodology can be summed up in one rather glib phrase, which is, it should be easy to pick up, hard to master. Yeah? So anyone should be able to pick it up and have fun playing this game. But it's tricky enough to master so that you have to invest time in it, invest in skill, you have to practice at it and hone your craft at playing this game. And that is what will give the game longevity. It's why League of Legends is still around, because it is so deep that people haven't worked it all out yet. And they never will. It's why StarCraft still gets played. It gets played on a level that you or I couldn't possibly comprehend, because it's so deep, these new tactics, these new strategies. And it's mind-boggling to look at it and just see a couple of pros playing. It's just, how their minds work is just incredible. But I think that is the hallmark of a decent game design. You get accessibility, so people will discover it and like it straight away. But then you get the longevity, so you foster a community, you foster a skill set. And people feel, crucially, that when they do close it down, they're not just thinking, well, that was a quarter of an hour of my life, I'm not getting back. They think, oh, I made a bit of progress now. That was worth it. I enjoyed doing that. I wasn't just checking up on my phone. So I've ranted quite a bit there. I realise I've just kind of gone off. By my reckoning, we've got probably, what, 20 minutes left, something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah? As obviously I'm a game designer, and in the interests of there should be interaction, you guys should have authorship and ownership over this. I think this is the point where I'll ask you to ask questions about anything you want. But first of all, let's have a big hand for Jared here. They were pretty justifiable, I guess. Yeah. All right. So from this point on, ask questions, anything you want. I cannot guarantee that I will be positive. Just sit down. Anybody got any questions? No questions at all?
Okay, so you know you can add about like this is okay. One of the guys who's been going against the stream in free to play is Ken Wong, who's one of the guys like wanting to craft a good quality experience and being able to charge for it.
Yeah.
So they just released the expansion back.
And got a lot of negative reviews.
Yes, because it was paid.
Because mobile gamers can go die in a fire. Right. Right, Ken, for a start, full disclosure, Ken is a very good friend of mine. He's actually in our new game, Super Glyph Quest. He's the farmer, because he taught us how to play Agricola, which is also another very good game. Yeah, so the issue there is the issue I made at the start. People don't value mobile games, which is complete crap, because look at something like Monument Valley. It's short. It is the most stylish game you'll ever play. It is perfect for the device that it is on. The interface is brilliant. The style is stunning. It's a fantastic experience. I don't think it's a very good game by my criteria. I loved every second of playing it, and it was well worth the money that I spent on it. Yeah. To bring that back to free-to-play, I think there's some very, very important things to be made clear ahead of time. One, free-to-play is not evil. Free-to-play is just a tool. All it is an alternative monetization strategy. That tool can be used for good, it can be used for evil. The majority of the games that get all of the coverage, the heavy hitters, I would say are veering towards evil. But there are games that do it right. And the thing is, everyone's benchmark for what constitutes, no, that game is evil, is different. There's this sliding scale of evilness. League of Legends is generally regarded as the best, by my criteria, way of doing it. It's a good game. It's very frustrating, but it's a good game that doesn't try to gouge its player base, and it monetizes terribly. League of Legends monetizes at around something like 3%, I think it is, which to most free-to-play analysts is, they're like, why are you doing this, Riot? Why? You could be making so much more money. And Riot, to their eternal credit, have said, no, we're making enough money. But the only reason the League of Legends can be nice about it is because they've got a player base of God knows how many millions who are all really invested, and each one of them pays a lot of money for it. So that is always held up as the example of it done right, by my definition of right. Bernardino has a completely different view on that, obviously. So it can be done, but then the thing that upsets me the most is what I call it's trust. I don't trust the motives behind a lot of these games. I was very important to fire up Clash of Clans before I came out here, because prior to like a couple of weeks ago, I never played it because I was kind of going, I'm not interested, I'm not interested, I'm not interested. But rather than, so I don't feel I'm in a position to comment on it because I'm still very early in the actual game. But so far I'm enjoying it, I'm liking it. I find if you do want to play free-to-play and you don't want to spend any money, then you need 2 or 3 games on the go. So you can be playing one, and then when the energy mechanic runs out on that one, you go into this other one. And then by the time you finish with that, you can come back to this. I'm a big fan of, I like in-app purchases. In-app purchases, again, they're a tool. You can use them well, you can use them poorly. I'm not a huge fan of consumables when I don't know what it is that I'm getting, when I cannot make a value call on what it is. So I can spend $2.99, oh, hang on, what is that in? So 20 kroner, I can spend like 30 kroner on a game to buy, I don't know, 50 gems. Does that sound like a good deal? I don't know. Well, what does 50 gems get me? It gets me an indeterminate thing. If I spent 30 kroner on a, well, now we're going to double the amount of coins you get from now until the rest of the game. Oh yeah, okay, yeah, I'd like that. I'll pay to speed that up. You can spend 30 kroner on this cool looking hat that hardly anyone has. Oh, I might be interested in that. Can I show it off to my friends? Hey, look, I've got the cool hat. Yeah, I'm interested in that sort of thing. But if it's just, give me this amount of money, and I will give you some gameplay, but I'm going to be fuzzy as to how much. And it may move as well. So the value of 50 coins now, 50 gems now, is different to the value of 50 gems in 5 or 6 levels time. Do you see what I mean? And it's very hard to make that judgment call. That, I think, that's where free-to-play for me falls down. I don't trust what it is. And that's before we get into the whole how the sausage was made and some of the tricks they use to try and fool people into giving you money. I think, again, summing it all up in one nice little clip phrase, there should be more carrot, less stick. You should want to spend money on this thing because it's a cool thing to have, or a cool thing to enable or do or whatever. You shouldn't have to spend money on it to get rid of something that you didn't want to do. Do you see what I mean? Yeah. And again, it's the positivity thing, it's the negativity thing. The positive one is much better. But it's a very hard thing to balance and quantify.
Yeah. South Park just did a commentary on free-to-play.
Yes.
And their idea was that you have to make it
And they were
boring.
sitting here doing this.
Yes.
Yeah.
You have to make it boring so that it's more fun to pay for it.
Yeah. Why would you want to pay money for a game that actively hampers your progress as well? I don't understand that. So, for instance, something like Candy Crush. And you can do this and experiment yourself. Get 2 copies of Candy Crush. On one of them, buy some of the currency and see how far you get before you run into this is too tricky now. And on the other one, don't pay a penny and see how far you get. And this one will get a lot further. Because they go, oh, he's spent money, therefore he's prepared to spend money, therefore let's make it harder so he has to spend more money. And it's stuff like that which is just, and unless you know it's going on under the scenes, you can't quantify it. And they're hoping that no one talks to each other and goes, well, I got this far and I haven't spent anything. Well, hang on, I've got all of these power-ups and I can't get as far as you. What's got there? See what I mean? So it's a trust issue.
Yeah.
That's the only problem with free-to-play. Other than that, it's a fantastic idea because it gets used well. It gets your game into the hands of many more people, many more people than you could ever possibly hope to do by pre. I'll throw some numbers at you from GlyphQuest. So our first game was free to download. It had 1 in-app purchase in it, which unlocked the rest of the game. So it's not free to play by the current definition of the term. It's essentially the old shareware model. Remember that, where you'd get a demo, if you liked it, you pay a bit of money, and then here's the whole rest of the game. So that's what we did with the first one. And we did 250,000 downloads on that because it was free. Not because it was any good, because it was free. And we monetized it around, at its peak, between 10 and 12%, which is an insane value considering that most free-to-play games are around the 2% mark. In all free-to-play games, 98% of the people who are playing it don't pay a penny. Though 2% who do pay enough to cover everyone else. That's the reason the model works, because there are some people who are so invested in the game that they will cover everyone else's fees. But that's not quite the same sort of model. And in being not quite the same sort of model, we learned something else very, very strange as well, which is about, again, the language we use. Because we appeared in the free column, there was a lot of people who just assumed that this was a free-to-play game and therefore they never had to spend any money on it. So when we capped them at level 5 and said, now we need to give you money, they thought we were tricking them. They thought we were gouging them. Hey, what the hell, man? You know, you said this was free and now you want me to pay. Then there was the whole other people who were like, I'm not downloading that because it's free and it says it's got an in-app purchase. I don't trust that. And we're like, no, you don't understand. It's not like that. It's the same as being premium, but you're getting a demo first. You get to try it and work out if you like it or not. The biggest argument against premium is you're asking me to make an uninformed decision ahead of time for an amount of money. Yeah? And this really came born out of the AAA space. Give me 60 quid for this game. Well, can I try it? Is it any good? No, just give me 60 quid, then go out and find if it's any good or not. And that's bad. That is obviously a very, very bad thing. So we kind of fell between the two stools. The main reason being that there's no language to adequately describe what our model was anymore, and certainly not on the App Store. So that was interesting. So for Superglyph Quest, we decided we would go fully premium. Mainly because, again, it's just the two of us. That's not really the resources you need to make a traditional free-to-play game work. And it didn't sell nearly as many units, not even a fraction. And not even a fraction, or it hasn't made a fraction of the amount of money that Glyph Quest made, because people are balking at the free premium. Well, for a number of reasons. We're balking at the premium. We've released at the wrong time of year because we had to, because we ran out of money. We released basically in October, so just as all the Halloween updates were coming out, just as iOS 8 tanked everything, so everything was being updated to work for iOS 8, and then we released this tiny little game there, and it just went so under the radar that no one's heard of it. So, but we didn't have any choices. Anyway, does that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? Preferably not about free to play, but what the hell?
Well, being in the games industry so many years as you have, you might notice that many startups are kind of making some specific mistakes over and over without knowing that they should have known not to do that. Do you have any hints, any tips?
Yeah. So again, born out of just pure experience. When you are going to set up a company to make a game, setting up a company, by the way, is phenomenally easy. It is really easy. It's really, well, certainly in England, it's really easy. It's really cheap. There's one website you go to. It costs you 15 quid. Bam, you're a director of a company. It's so simple. The problem that most, I would say, indie developers run into is that, so you get, say, there's 3 of you. You've got the art guy, you've got the design guy, and you've got the coder guy. And then you're going to outsource the sound, because everyone outsources the sound. And that's brilliant, and you can make a game together. But what you can't do is run a company together. When you set up a company, you'll set it up for a very good reason. We want to make this game, we're very passionate about making this game. And the thing that nobody takes into consideration is you've got to run the company. And that takes up, I would say, as a startup, about 50% of your time. And that is dealing with landlords, banks, the phone company, internet providers, the tax office, paying people salaries. There is a whole load of extraneous crap that you don't want to deal with because you want to be this developer guy who just makes these games. But you need a business person there to do the businessy stuff, or half of your time is going to be taken up doing the businessy stuff, which you're not going to enjoy because it's nowhere near as much fun as making a game, but it's so fundamentally crucial to the whole enterprise succeeding that somebody has to do it. You're the director, buck stops with you. So you either hire someone to do it, or you do it yourself. That I think is the single biggest thing. That, and like I said before, the ambition. Don't go into it going, we're going to make the next Minecraft. No, you're not. You're really not. We're going to make the next Doom. Anything like that. It's not going to happen. Be less ambitious, but be focused and polished, I would say.
Could you talk a little bit about your experience? Because you made Glyph Quest, a great game, and you also made Super Glyph Quest. What was the difference in making a sequel to a game, sort of, because the puzzle elements of Glyph Quest is very fun?
So, well, thank you very much. So you've played it?
Both of them.
Excellent. Tell your friends.
Yeah.
The crucial things there were that because we'd already made the first, we knew where we went wrong, so we could fix those bits. It was a lot more robust. The first was, I'm not a coder by trade. I can code a little bit, but don't want me building architecture, and that's exactly what I had to do for both of these games. So the first game was like basically a house of cards, and we were just throwing features at it, and every now and again it would just go, and I wouldn't know why. To tell you how much of not a coder I am, when we launched it, we launched the wrong version. We launched an earlier version that wasn't finished because I pressed the wrong button in Xcode, and I don't know how that happened, and that was a disaster, absolutely unmitigated disaster. So by the time we come to the second one, we've already made all of those mistakes, and we know not to make those mistakes again. So it's a lot more refined. Or put it this way, it got a lot further through development before we started throwing things at it and it started falling over. So it's a lot more polished, a lot more refined. And then there's just loads more content. Because we were able to reuse, or essentially reuse, a bunch of assets from the first one, we were free to then layer on more assets, more content. We were free to add a story in. I know I banged on about the story at the start, saying story is not important. It's not important, but it's certainly additive. Sound isn't important, especially in the mobile space. A lot of people play it with the sound off because they're listening to their own music, or they're out in somewhere crowded and they can't hear it anyway. So as such, it's less important. But you wouldn't release a game with no sound. So yeah, we were basically just forewarned. We knew what we were getting into this time, whereas the first one was a lot more sort of experimental. We never planned to make the second. The only reason we made the second is because everyone seemed to really like the first one. Which for me, that's absolutely the best reason to do a sequel. You know, it's not just, don't just do a sequel because you want to add one to the number on the end and just keep your presence in the thing and keep ticking over. Do it because it's like, I really wish we'd put those in. That, incidentally, another top tip for development. At a point in development, there will reach a time where you have to stick it in a box and ship it. Okay? Shipping a game is absolutely de facto the hardest thing you can do in this industry. Absolutely the hardest. There's a million things that can go wrong. And one of the most common is you never think it's ready to finish because you're always going, oh, hang on, wouldn't it be cool if we can add this? No, stop. Be the closed thing. Be the closed model. Get it finished. Then maybe afterwards, either do a sequel or do an update or something like that. I think that, again, for indies who get into it because they've got this magnum opus that they want to do, they've got this big vision, and who want to adopt the mantra, it'll be ready when it's ready. Good God, don't do that as an independent. You will run out of money and starve long before you think it's ready. Yeah? There has to be a line in the sand. And we hit that with Super Glyph Quest probably a little earlier than we wanted to, but again, we were able to finish it because of the lessons that we learned with Glyph Quest. And because of the lessons we'd learned with Glyph Quest, we released the correct version. And we told Apple that we were doing it, which again was another crucial thing in the whole, getting featured and reviewed well. The other thing I would add to that is marketing. My God, that's so important. It's very hard to do on a budget of $0, but it is so fundamentally important that you have to try. And there are many, many tricks you can use to kind of self-promote. Not least of which is coming to events like this. How many of you prior to just now had heard of Glyph Quest? A few. Awesome. I'm impressed. How many of you, based on what other people, like him, have said about how good it is, and now thinking, oh, maybe I'll give that a go? That's what we like to see. Marketing. Didn't cost me a penny. Anyone else? Nice. Sorry, yeah? Finger.
Just because I love hearing you rant about it. UI.
UI. Okay. Again, one of the other big mistakes that I see indies making time and time again is the user interface. They've got a fantastic idea for a game, but then they, I don't know, they stick a virtual joypad on a touchscreen. Don't do that. It's a rubbish interface. Or, does anyone play Dwarf Fortress? Yeah? What an amazing game! It's brilliant. It's absolutely fantastic. How do you play it again? Why is there 4 different ways of moving a selection cursor around? Why isn't there just one? See what I mean? He's got this fantastic game with an absolutely appalling user interface, which means that no one can play it. But for him, it doesn't matter because he's not into it to release it to make money or anything like that. He's doing it as a passion project, which means that unless you are actually inside his brain, you don't know how to play that game. But yeah, if from the gameplay side of things, if there's one big mistake that indies make, in my experience, it's always user interface. They've never thought it through, or say, for instance, you've got a controller, you've got a 360 controller or something like that. There are 14 different buttons on a 360 controller. You don't have to use all of them. You really don't have to use all of them. In fact, if you make your game work in just 1 or 2 buttons, that'd be fantastic. as a designer, it is very easy to get carried away with zero constraints. We can do anything we want. You will make a better game if you have lots of constraints. How do we make this work given this rule set? We're not allowed to do this. We're not allowed to do that for whatever reason. How can you make the game based on those? There was a fantastic article, there was a fantastic talk by the guys who made, what was it called? Was it Red Blade or something? There was a Wii game where you...
Red Steel.
Red Steel, there you go, Red Steel. They did a fantastic thing which highlights exactly this point. The reason Red Steel didn't work is because there weren't any constraints. And again, coming back to what I was saying earlier, language didn't work. So they would say, slash the enemy. And to some people, a slash was this. And that produces a nice horizontal spike on the G accelerometer of the Wiimote. It's brilliant, it can pick that up. But to some people, a slash is this. And that's different. To some people, it was that. To some people, it was even that, but they were probably quite strict. So everyone had their own language for what constituted a slash. And the game had to kind of go, was that a slash or was that just, oh, hang on, no, that was me saying, no, I don't want that, or whatever. By having an analog stick, by having a joystick, you've got this constraint, you've got a circle. Your joystick cannot be anywhere other than inside that circle somewhere. By having this, it can be anywhere, and you don't necessarily know, did they mean that? Is that something they're trying to tell us, or are they actually having a heart attack and someone needs to call an ambulance? So yeah, constraints are very, 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 very important, especially in terms of UI design. Like Dwarf Fortress guy needs a smaller keyboard, essentially. Anyone else?
Last question.
Last question. No last question? Last question?
Okay. Since you're now in charge, what does it take for you to cancel a game?
That is heartbreaking. You know what? I have never cancelled a game. I have had many, many games cancelled. But to be fair, this is probably a fault on my part. James is going to use a phrase, kill your babies.
I usually go with fail faster, but
Faster.
kill your babies.
It is very important to realise when something isn't going to work. And the earlier you can do that, the better it is for everyone. It is so very hard to do it when you get the rose-tinted specs. You're invested in this. You're so close to this, you can't see the faults. If you could take a step back and go, yeah, that's not working. And this works on every level. This works as a project. It's gone too far down the wrong road. We need to scrap this and either start again or do something different. But it also works on the micro level as well. That component of it, we all love that. No. What it is you're actually used to it, but if you give it to someone else, they will hate it. And that comes back to what I was saying earlier about the focus testing. The most important opinion isn't yours, it's your audience, Joe Public. You've got to know what it is that they want and how they're going to react to it. And the only way you can find that out is by asking them, getting them to sit down and play with them. So, but yeah, don't be afraid to fail early, and crucially, so how many of you are students here? Fail here, because in here, it doesn't matter. It's a mark in a book, right? And you will fail, and the people here will tell you why you failed and what you can do to fix it. Don't wait until you get out there to fail, because then you won't be able to pay rent, and that's a whole different ballgame. Yeah. Does that answer that? Okay.
The reason why I asked is because a lot of mobile developers are like, okay, if we don't believe that this game will be possibly top 10, then we cancel it. Or if you're a small studio, top 100 at least.
There is a phenomenal amount of truth in there. The way the App Store works, or the way mobile games work, is if you are not on the front page, if you are not in the top 10, you are nowhere, and your game will not sell a damn thing. I would like to lay the blame of that fairly on these self-entitled, lazy-ass mobile gamers who can all go die in a fire. But it's not just their fault. There are so many options available to you in that space. How are you ever going to be able to sift through them all and find the one that you want? Yeah, it's not possible. So, but largely, none of them want to try. None of them want to try. So it is absolutely true. It's absolutely true to say that if you're not top 10, if you're not featured, you are nowhere. Which is why as soon as we stopped being featured and fell out of the charts, While we were featured, we got to #1 in the charts, and we were really, really happy with that. But then as soon as we stopped being featured, we just went straight out the charts, and now no one can find us, and so we're not selling any units. And so, yeah, if we had another option, we would have pulled the game by now and made something else. But we didn't have that option. We couldn't not release Super Glyph Quest. We had to. Okay, thank you very much.